Destiny 2 is over. Its team is being moved off. All expansions are canceled, and everything is looking pretty dire for Bungie. So my name is Ojiro. I've been working in games for a quick minute now. And with Bungie, we've heard confirmations from Paul Tassi, who has he knows people that work at Bungie and talk to them, where they are saying that most of the people that were working there didn't know that Destiny 2 was getting sunset. They canceled all the projects. Basically, when Bungie made their announcement and they were like, "It's done," like we're winding it down. That was when they first heard about any of this. So we also found out that they are currently working on a bunch of game concepts at the studio, but none of them have been greenlit. Some people were saying that hopefully that Destiny 3 was one of them, but that has not been approved. And all the other titles that they're trying to work on to try and put ideas out for Sony to give the green light to fund them, none of them have been approved so far. And they're saying that, we're going to keep Marathon alive, we're going to put more people onto it, which is a mistake. And this also, we found out they're going to be laying off a lot of people over at Bungie. It is honestly, it's pretty much done. If I were someone that was trying to decide what I'm supposed to do with Bungie, and I've got this team over at Bungie, this massive team, I forget how many, it's 400 to 800, something like that. I could probably Google it, I just don't care to, because at the end of the day, it's the same result, which is the company cannot produce work at the pace they need to produce it with for the quality that they need. You've got a AAA studio that's really big in a very expensive location. And in the course of 4 to 5 years and $250 million of development, we've got 4 maps in a extraction shooter. And now they're trying to tack on a player, PvE mode so that they can try and get more people into the game. But realistically, Marathon, it's kind of done. I know there's some Marathon fans that will really like it, and they're going to say, it should go on for a while longer, and it probably will. Destiny 1's still going, Destiny 2 is going to be going, but I can imagine that a lot of the drip-fed story content that they were planning on with Marathon, it's probably not going to happen. Or they're going to severely curtail the amount of stuff that they have planned for the game. Because they probably have a pretty big internal roadmap for Marathon that they're probably going to cut most of. Because the game's just, I don't know what their microtransactions are looking like, because we can see that they're making however many numbers they're making a day for the game, but it's not titanic amounts of numbers. And once you've got that money coming into the game, you also need the money through microtransactions. And I genuinely do not know or have any kind of visibility on how well they're converting players that bought the game into people that are engaging with the microtransactions in the game. I totally do not. But even if people were to go and be spending money into the game, it's very expensive to have this kind of dev team, which, they've got a ton of people working on Marathon right now. And with all the talk of people saying maybe we'll get Destiny 3, maybe this will happen, that'll happen. If I'm someone that's at Sony and I'm looking at Bungie, one of the most important things with any kind of game studio is leadership. Because you can have the best individual contributors in the world, but if all of your leaders and managers and leads are bad, you're not going to get anything out of them. And the fact of the matter is, Bungie's leadership is really bad. Sony's leadership is really bad. So more likely than not, with all of these greenlight projects, this is kind of like a mercy. I've worked at places before where we've hit that phase where they're like, okay, everyone just kind of try making out new games, and then we'll work on them as proof of concepts, and we'll see what gets greenlit. And what that realistically is giving people something to do while you try and figure out who you're going to lay off from the company. So right now, I'm sure they're going through and they're looking at people on a title by title basis, and they're saying, who can we cut so that we can make sure that the existing games keep running and we get to have a little bit more content released on Marathon. And realistically, that's not guaranteed here. There's a very real possibility that with this massive layoff round, they also cut almost all of Marathon in the process. Because again, they've spent so much money on this company, billions of dollars, to try and, get Bungie to just produce work, and they're just not good at producing work. Like the Bungie now is very different from the Bungie that was making like Halo 1, 2, and 3. It's just wearing the name as a skin suit at this point. And they're unable to execute. At every level, they're unable to execute. So when we're looking at Bungie now and the kind of state that they're in, it's really just a matter of when they're going to figure out who they're going to let go and when they're going to execute on that. Because all these people that are like trying to figure out new game titles, probably 99% of them are getting laid off. Like realistically, maybe they'll keep a few people here and there if, because usually what happens with all this is like you get the high level of people that get decided. And then like kind of like at the last minute, they'll ask some other people where they're like, hey, this is the list. Do you see anything on here that we shouldn't do? Because I've worked at places where that's come down, and then the powers that be that actually do work are like, no, you can't lay off this person, that person, and that person. Like if you do that, everything's going to fall apart, and we're not going to be able to like release our game, or we're not going to be able to update our servers, whatever it's going to be. So they'll figure out the last minute, and then they're going to pull the trigger, and they're going to mass wipe Bungie. So most of the people that are working on these greenlight titles, they're done. Probably a lot of people that are on Marathon, also done. And the question is, what's going to happen with Bungie next? Because they're going to have their skeleton crew working on Bungie. Destiny 3 is not in development. It's not been greenlit. It won't be greenlit because the Bungie that they have now can't execute. We did see them reduce the, I forget what it was, where they were like, on our investment stuff, Bungie's actually worth this much less than what we think it is. I forget the name of the thing. I could Google it. I don't want to. But basically what they're saying is, the value of the name has gone down this much. So the question is, will Sony sell Bungie to someone else? Because for their sake, they could get a lot of money by just getting rid of the studio. I don't know if the IPs are going to go with it. I don't know if they're going to say, okay, we'll get rid of Bungie and we're going to keep the Destiny franchise and send that off to somebody else. That's going to be totally on them because, when Bungie got kicked out of Microsoft, they didn't take, Halo with them. So who's going to purchase them? I don't know. I think it'd be hilarious if Microsoft purchased them and then they put some people that actually knew what they were doing inside Bungie, and then they gave Halo, the franchise, back to Bungie. That'd be hilarious to me. Is it going to happen? Probably not. But I mean, we could hope for funsies' sake. But when it comes to actually Bungie, Destiny, all the people that are working there, this is pretty much the end game for the company. I don't foresee any kind of future where Sony's deciding to spend another $100-200 million to tell them to work on something that's going to come out in another 4 to 5 years, because the pace of what Bungie is able to produce is really, really bad. They're just not good at it. I don't know why. I don't go there. I have no visibility into kind of like what their process, their creative process is for getting things done. Usually for these large places, it just becomes a bureaucratic mess. Because with something like, Hideo Kojima game, Hideo Kojima is the person that makes all the decisions. He's going to decide if something's going to come out. He's going to decide if something's good, if it's bad. But when it comes to a lot of these nameless organizations like, Bungie or Blizzard, it's just a giant panel of random faceless people that are making decisions. So everything is unimaginably slow at all times. There's nobody that's actually in charge. And that democratization of making games is one of the worst things that can happen to games, because it kind of neuters it from a lot of the things that would make it interesting. Nothing can be edgy. Everything has to be super, politically correct. And then you just have like a bunch of just unimpressive slop that comes out, doesn't perform, and it takes forever to get there because every decision that needs to be decided upon needs like 1,000 people to come in at different levels and be like, oh, well, I need to make sure that my job is safe, so I need to make an objection here, even if I agree with it, so that I can tell people that I'm engaged and that I really care about the company. But what that actually does with all these like faceless bureaucrats and middle managers, it just makes everything, it's a glacial pace for everything. It's terrible. And Bungie is that. We've heard from Marty O'Donnell, who was one of the originals over at Bungie, where he went through that Xbox phase, And when they left Xbox, he was like, look, they took the bureaucracy of Microsoft, which is some of the worst Byzantine garbage that like I've ever heard about from anywhere, and they just kept it at Bungie. And that's the kind of company that is making these games right now. This is the reason why, things like Destiny are shutting down, because they're just incapable of executing. And that's all it is. So it's done. Bungie's done. Destiny 3 not coming out, at least anytime soon. And if it is something that's going to come out in the future, it's not going to be coming out because of the folks, at least, that are currently working at Bungie. And even if it were to start development like today, we're not going to be seeing it for 5 years? Because the Bungie we have today made 4 maps in 5 years. Do you think they're going to be able to make Destiny 3 in 5 or less? We're not going to see this until the 2030s at this rate. And that's just how it is. So as much as it's pretty bad news for everyone that is really engaged in these franchises and really hoping for a lot out of this, I would have way preferred a Destiny 3 come out than Marathon. That should have been where they, if they were going to do that, they could have timed it to say Final Shape comes out for Destiny 2. That's when we, get the last expansion out, and then we say we're winding down and we're ending, and then they could have launched Destiny 3 shortly thereafter. That would have been the right play. But the obsession with Sony to try and chase these niche ideas through live service titles, which, in this wave is the extraction shooters. All these people were like, we're going to make extraction shooters, and that's going to be the next big thing. And people are going to spend 1 billion hours in our game and give us $10 trillion, and we'll be googillionaires and have all these yachts. It just defies logic. And, Bungie's paying for it. And I don't want to be like, oh, this is all Sony's fault, because you can have an unimpressive publisher and still make a good game. And I think Helldivers 2 is a great example of that, where Sony as a publisher sucks. They have terrible ideas. They don't know what they're doing. Most of them need to be laid off. They should axe the entire headquarters in California and just send it all back to Japan. But, the people that work at Bungie too are also really, really bad. That's all that it comes down to. And it may not even be that most of them are really bad, because the whole dynamic of the company and these Byzantine systems is set up so that everything is super inefficient and very uncreative and just unimpressive. So a lot of these people could actually be perfectly good at their jobs and actually make great content, but they're not going to be able to make great content while they're working at Bungie in its current iteration. And Sony's not going to be selling Bungie anytime soon, at least to our knowledge. If that is something that's in the works right now, then that's something that no one's been told, because it would be at the highest levels. Realistically, more likely than not, they're just going to cut a lot of the headcount and make it a lot cheaper on their books, and then figure out what they want to do with this company, which in its current iteration, if they're not selling it, is just going to be, just keep the store running. That's all they're going to do. I don't think they're making anything else over it at this company. It's done. But that is it for this very unfortunate end to into Destiny. I really would have been really excited to play Destiny 3. So this is really, really a bummer. But that's all for today. Thank you for your time, and hope to see you again in a future video. Farewell.